Megan, Vlatko, thank you for joining us today. Megan, I'll start with you if that's okay. We were obviously speaking to Crystal, to Lindsay yesterday about just sort of what's come out over the last sort of 72 hours. So sort of the easiest question to ask, I suppose it's a difficult question to answer, is just how are you personally, how's the rest of the squad, considering we now know the scale in which the problems that you guys have been dealing with for so long?
Probably a bit of everything. I mean, it's horrifying. Obviously, I'm sure everybody read the report and, have read all the reporting that's been going on the last year. I mean, it's even when you know it, it's just horrifying over and over to read. It's been difficult for the players. Some of those players play in those clubs, have been coached by those coaches, likely have been abused in one form or another. Some of those environments or different environments, youth environments, whatever it may be. It can definitely be re-triggering or re-traumatizing, and just to have to, deal with that on such a incredible occasion to be here at Wembley and be able to, participate in this game, which is so exciting. I mean, the juxtaposition is just kind of ridiculous. I think Becky said it yesterday. We're, angry and exhausted and together and unified. So it's kind of all of it. It's nice to be here together as a team. I feel like it's really powerful for us all to be together as a national team and be able to speak, on behalf of all of this. Whenever Becky speaks or I speak or anybody speaks, it's, on behalf of everybody here. So it has been very difficult. I can't even imagine for, the players most affected or just the names that we know and probably a lot of the names that we don't know. So just thinking about them and trying to keep together as a group. Vlatko's been amazing and just giving us the space and just taking the time to acknowledge what we're going through and understanding that it's not just something that you acknowledge and move on from, giving space for people if they need to take time or take practices or take meetings or whatever. In a way, I mean, it's really sad to say, but in a way, I think we're used to having to deal with one thing or another. It seems to bring us closer and, definitely unify the team. And it's just one of those sort of intimate environments that we're in that we're used to taking on a lot and playing in these kind of conditions. And I think being able to be on the field, to have, not just a head coach, but an entire staff that, supports us fully on and off the field, where we can step on the field and do our job, is something that I think is a safe haven for all of us, and we're really looking forward to. But yeah, it's been, really difficult, I think, for everyone, probably in, the entire landscape of women's sports. Nobody ever wants to see anything like this, but hopefully this can be, a moment in time that you say none of this ever happened again.
Yeah, the players have led the way when it comes to, obviously, equal treatment, equal pay.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, so social justice. And now, obviously, we now know sort of the full trauma and you're sort of reliving things and supporting. But how are you just not emotionally exhausted as a group of players?
We are. I mean, like I said, as sick as this sounds, I feel like we're used to having to take on so much more than game plan and tactics. I feel like we have an incredible ability to shoulder so much. I think with how great Vlatko and the staff have been, and our entire support staff have been in really, allowing us that space and just acknowledging it and being able to talk about it. It's not something that nobody's talking about or nobody feels, any kind of shame in bringing up. It's something that's very open between all of us. I think that's very helpful. But we've, had to shoulder a lot on this team. I think we have a lot of experience, particularly with the older group, whether it was the lawsuit or equal pay or kneeling or whatever, it may be. So I think we have a bit of experience in that, and the older players can, help shield and shoulder a lot of, whether it's media attention or just kind of like what we do, how do you act? It's kind of probably as a younger player, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how do I even deal with this? They can always look to us just as we could always look to our older players. So I think it's just, us kind of understanding the the vibe of the group and making sure that we're, checking in on everybody, but also understanding like we're really excited to play. And I think that's a nice distraction. This is an incredible game, an incredible moment. That actually I think sits kind of nicely, with this horrific thing. It's like the players have pushed it to this point where, it's a sellout, 90,000 plus at Wembley, off another team, fighting for respect in their country and fighting for the right treatment, having an incredible run and being able to galvanize their fans and their country behind them and feeling like this is a special moment for us to all come together and celebrate women's football for all of the good that it is.
Joe, go ahead. Let's try to keep it to one question per. So,
can I ask one to each?
Yeah, go.
Hi, Megan. Thank you for speaking to us today. We heard from Beth Meads earlier this morning, and she said that the US players and England players have been in contact and there would be a sign of support in and around the game tomorrow. Just wondering what that unity means to you and the players, and if you could tell us any more about what we might see tomorrow.
I mean, I think it means everything. I think for so long we have felt, I think our women's national team gets a lot of attention globally for things off the field, but it's all of us. And I think in so many ways, I think even just us watching their Euros run, you couldn't help but, want them to bring it home. So, I think this general support, around the world for all of our different, federations and teams is there. So obviously to, have this happen in our country, in our league, and to be able to bring that here in a very special moment for England, playing at Wembley is sold out, the whole deal, to have them acknowledge obviously what we're going through. And I mean, I think as Lucy said, there's no report that came out here, but I'm sure that there could be one, just as there could be one in likely every single country, which is a really sad reality. But I feel like there's just so much solidarity between the things that we have to fight for. So obviously there'll come a time where we'll be competing on the pitch, but I feel like everything before that, we're all fighting together for the same things.
And Joe, we'll give us a couple hours and we'll make it clear what the teams are planning on doing. Okay, question for Vlatko.
Appreciate that, thank you. And just to talk about the game itself, if that's okay, it's obviously the world champions versus European champions, Vlatko. How much looking forward to that tactical battle with Serena?
Yeah, I know it's going to be a good show. We've talked with our team that this is not actually an important game, but it's a good game. It's a good show because the importance, it's not a World Cup, it's not Olympics. Those are the important games. The importance of this game is not as significant. It's still, there's some importance because of the preparation for the World Cup, but it's a good game. It's a game that will make a statement in women's sports, and it's exciting moment. It's good moment, but I do think that on both sides we're going to have tactical decisions that we're going to try, and we'll see how it works. I mean, this is what this game is for. At least that's how we approach it. Is try different things and have enough time to fix if it doesn't work.
Thank you.
Let's go with Meg up front here. Thank you for passing that around.
Megan, just in terms of what happens next, right? There is going to be change. There's been change for the last year, right? But the accountability part is now starting to come through a bit. We've seen moves in Portland, moves in Chicago. Just how important for you is it to see the accountability piece happening with the actual policy changes that need to happen?
I mean, I think it's essential, obviously. Those people are in positions that have responsibilities, and they didn't fulfill those responsibilities. They didn't protect the players at all amidst year after year after year. I feel like it's just like impossible to overstate that every single year someone said something about multiple coaches in the league and about multiple different environments. So if, year after year after year, you cannot perform your duties. I know I wouldn't be in my position if I couldn't perform my duties year after year, much less practice after practice likely. So it's just, and obviously the horrific consequences that come with them not performing those duties, putting players at risk, putting future players at risk. Obviously Paul went on and coached, a ton of different players. And kept doing the exact same thing. So it's just unacceptable. Like you don't get to, it's a privilege to be in a position around sports or be in one of those positions or to play sport. And it's not something that just lasts forever if you don't appreciate it. So none of those people have shown that they deserve to be around this beautiful game and have a right to be, because they can't even do the basic job of basic responsibilities of their job. And I think just for it to signal to players that we're being heard and that we are being respected and the action is being taken. Obviously the league was set up hastily in a way that got it off the ground and gave us a place to play. And I think every player would say that we're thankful and appreciative for that. But it was also done with absolutely zero guardrails. And that's just unacceptable. And so, for the future of the league, for players going forward, for players playing right now, it's essential that we know that we're being taken care of and supported in all of the right ways. And everybody that's working in and around the league has the same goal and the same understanding of what the level is and what the responsibilities are. So I think without accountability and without, people, specifically who did the wrong thing being gone, that just says to us that nobody's really hearing us. So obviously the firings in Portland, we'll see what happens with the management, but I don't think that Merritt Paulson is fit to be the owner of that team. I don't think Arnhem is fit to be the owner of Chicago. And we need to see those people gone, so people who are fit and who will take care of the game, respect the game, and help the game grow in the best way possible can replace them, so we can continue to not only have accountability and continue to bolster the policies and everything around the league, but help the league grow.
Grant, go ahead.
Megan, yesterday Crystal talked about trying to find joy where you can right now and how that comes in training, maybe in games with each other. How are you looking at that? Is that possible this week when you're playing with your team?
I think it is possible this week. Again, I feel like there's a reason that we're at Wembley right now. There's a reason that there's 90,000 people coming. There's a reason that, these two particular teams have stretched way past the field and done something really special. I feel like this is a really special moment in women's football. I know it's just a friendly, but it does mean more than that, and I think it signals more than that, and we should be really proud of that. We shouldn't have to do this. We shouldn't have to shoulder all that we have, but I think we've done it in a pretty amazing way and continue to grow the sport, and we should be really proud of that. And I think ultimately we have a great opportunity to play in front of a packed house. This is one of those, I think for me, kind of those special career moments that don't come around very often. And, like I said before, I think the field can often be a place where we can just relax and breathe and enjoy the sport that we love to play so much. So I think the game is that moment. I think, honestly, everyone is really looking forward to it. I know I am. I can't wait to play in front of 90,000 people.
Let's go to Steph, and then we'll go to the back.
Hi, Megan. I think you said earlier, the veterans are trying to kind of shield some of the younger players here. And I think it hasn't escaped us that a lot of the players who have been talking so far have some kind of link to Portland. So I'm just wondering if you could clarify if the players are kind of essentially volunteering to do that. I think there's a sense of, from the media side, knowing we have to ask certain questions, but wanting to be careful to not, re-traumatize the players who are coming forward with what we're asking. So just wondering if you could elaborate on that.
I just think that this is kind of how this team has always operated. There's just a certain amount of knowledge and know-how that you have when you've been, a veteran on the team for a long time. You've been in press conferences. You've been having to answer tough questions about a bunch of different things. And I think not only setting the example for the younger players, almost like this is how you do it or this is how you would go about it, but I feel like if always me or Becky or someone can answer, one of those tough questions and not put a younger player in that position, we'd always want to do that. I think with the Portland players, it's a little tough because they obviously have, connections there, and some of them played there for a long time. Some of them are a little bit newer, so it might be a difficult situation. But I think we all feel the same, like we're players first and foremost. And so I feel like that's like the first team that we play for, all of us. While it might be difficult for some players or new information came to light that has completed the picture. I think for us, it's just always a matter of trying to keep the team in the best situation possible, and sort of using every ounce of whether it's leadership or knowledge or whatever to just make sure that everybody can show up and do their job, and I think also just trying to make everyone as comfortable as possible in a time that's really uncomfortable and can't really get away from that.
Go ahead in the back. Yep.
Hi, Megan. Sandra from Sun Sport. I just wanted to ask you mentioned accountability, and then you mentioned that this kind of situation happening elsewhere around the world. I mean, we've seen a couple of years ago with, I think, the Colombia youth women's team reporting the same thing, and then just other cases, Zambia. What kind of action would you like to see happen, perhaps at an international level, in terms of, making sure that, those who might be perpetrators or promoting this kind of negative behaviour are held properly responsible?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think one of the main things is just having some kind of policy in place. I mean, if there's absolutely nothing in place, like there's nothing to hold anybody accountable to. It's difficult to hold people accountable even when there is something in place. But I think that so whether it's from FIFA level or from a confederations level, at least having those policies in place or having hotlines that people can report to or reporting systems that have some teeth in them, that are actually real and not just going to be kind of thrown to the wayside, I think is really important. I think the education piece is also really important obviously for coaches and staff, but I think for players as well. I think something that really struck me from the Yates investigation was just how many Chicago players didn't even realize that they were being abused or manipulated, the emotional abuse that was happening. And that's, you can look at it now and say, well, how do you not know that? He's calling you all these names or whatever, but like that's how it happened. You don't know that it's happening. So being aware of those signs and what language is appropriate, what language is inappropriate, and then if something is happening, having a reporting system that actually has teeth in it that you can trust, that is going to protect the players, I think is really important. Obviously, that's a monumental task, and in a lot of these federations that maybe aren't funded very well or only get together a couple times a year, I know that can be difficult, but I think, from FIFA's standpoint, as the stewards of the game, I think that they have a responsibility to do everything in their power to ensure that every player is in a safe environment when they want to play.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Tom Gary from the Daily Telegraph. Megan, good afternoon. I just wanted to ask you about this camp more widely. You're playing Spain in a few days' time, of course, and one of the things we're discussing here, obviously, is players not being listened to by various bodies, and I wondered just how comfortable you are with that fixture, given that Spain, there are 15 players, not missing 15 players who aren't being listened to by their federation.
Yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable to know the just general level of disrespect for women's teams and women's players around the world. I feel like if ever you have the opportunity to ask their governing bodies why they're so disrespectful and they don't listen to them, that would be a great question, I think. For us, I think it's always incredibly important, to use our biggest platform, which I think is playing. We've obviously, showed our support to the Spanish players with the information that we have. But I think for us, it's important to play, to show up. Nobody thinks that when we're playing and showing up, we're siding with the Spanish Federation at all. They know we're always with the players 100%. And so it's a difficult situation. I really feel for those players. I hope that there's some sort of dialogue happening. It seems just absurd and asinine to take 15 of your best players. It seems a little immature from the Spanish Federation, to be honest. I think they should be sitting down and having conversations and at least listening to the players. It doesn't seem like they're doing that at all. So hope that can happen, and hopefully we can, show support in any way, both publicly and privately. And, looking forward to playing the game, but obviously understand it's a different type of game that has a little bit different meaning on it.
We got time for one more. Let's go right there. All right, maybe two more.
Hi, Megan. Sorry to bring up the shitty stuff and not talk about football. Is it hard, with all that's come out, does it change your perception of the sport, or is it hard to sort of compartmentalise, because you've got so many great people in the sport, but there's so many arseholes in the sport, and everywhere. Evidently, it's not just the coaches; it's the people covering for them. So, is it hard to sort of separate the two out?
Well, unfortunately, I think we have a lot of practice. I mean, I've known that, Rory's been an asshole for the entire time that I've known him, from the first second that I heard him on the sideline, the first season that I ever played. Paul's the same. I didn't know Kirstie Hawley personally, but everything I heard about him was horrible. So I feel like we sort of know it. Unfortunately, we kind of have a bit of practice. I think we're used to being historically spoken to in a negative way or condescendingly. And that's just something that we've had to overcome. I don't think it should be like that, but, incredibly proud of the players globally and just how we're able to take that on and continue to do our job. This week is a little bit harder to compartmentalize for sure. I think the Yates report was just devastating in every single way. It's even when you, like I said before, even when you know some of the information, just to read it plainly and have it, spelled out like that is just horrible. So it's been a little bit more difficult, but again, our staff and Vlatko's been incredible. Just making sure that the players have that space to be heard, and just kind of the general staff around the team, obviously doing whatever we can to, signal our support for everyone publicly and make sure we're taking care of each other internally. We always wish that we never had to do this. We never wish that we had to file a lawsuit or do any of the things that we've had to do or that we've spoken about, but that's just not the reality. So it's something that this team has always taken pride in and taken on, and ensuring that we leave the game in a better place. And I think the game's already in a better place after this report than it was the day before it came out.
All right, last one. Go ahead.
Cheers. I'll finish off with something slightly more cheerful. How did you feel, you've touched on it already, watching England this summer have their sort of 99ers moment, and do you think the gap is starting to close between the US and some of the top European teams?
I mean, I feel like there isn't really a huge gap anymore. I don't think there has been for a long time. These teams are just so good. We obviously saw that in the World Cup. You see that in the Euros. You see all, Champions League, everyone playing. The level of football right now is just insane. And we're, happy to be right in the mix at the top. I think it's going to be an incredible game. Like, I'm so excited to play. These are just like the moments that you want as a player. Especially something special like this leading into obviously a huge year, in 23 of the World Cup in Australia, New Zealand. I'm really looking forward to, seeing where they are and seeing where we are. It's a good chance for us to get our eyes on each other going into the World Cup, and I think good opportunity for the rest of the world to get their eyes on us as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Why don't you pop on out, watch a little training, and get ready for the big game.
Thanks, y'all.